welcome to the final episode of Real Talk. I'm Audrey Schroeder.
And I'm Stolze.
Today we're going to be talking about web-based content. We've talked a lot about movies and television throughout as we've gone through this show, but we haven't talked a lot about web-based content, and it's a big thing in today's society. The show we were wanting to talk about today, I think, is one that we both really love.
Definitely. I'm a huge fan of one that big YouTube creator Freddy Wong is famous for producing, Video Game High School. Now, if you're not familiar with Video Game High School, it's the story of an underdog gamer by the name of Brian D. Makes his way into a prestigious gaming university, and the whole thing takes place in kind of this alternate recent future where the #1 leading sport and entertainment is professional video games. So that being said, universities like Yale and Harvard and Video Game High School, as they put it, they're schools where people go train with the best of the best to become pro gamers in today's world. And it's a really interesting story. It started out as a Kickstarter program, and when it got its feet going, they really got it stirred up, wrote a full script, and it came out to be the huge web series it is today.
Actually, the series is getting released on Netflix as well now. I know that they gained a lot of traction on YouTube, got a crazy amount of views, lots of merch. They're producing season 3 right now. Eagerly awaiting season 3, of course. But you're right. It's a big show, and it's just a lot of fun, and that's the big thing. I like to think that a trademark of YouTube is a lot of things that people can relate to, joke-wise, culture-wise, internet culture, and it definitely comes out in VGHS.
Oh, definitely, especially the internet culture part of it. I mean, like, to kind of break down the story a little bit, for those who are not too familiar with it, I mean, Brian D. is just your normal old gamer. He plays in a pub match, your first-person shooter Field of Fire, which is kind of similar to Call of Duty or anything like that we've got. And one day he's just sitting there playing, and at the same time there's a show happening, a reality TV show where they're interviewing one of the best gamers of all time,
The Law,
which is the VGHS varsity captain, the best of the best,
played by the indomitable Brian Ferenzi, who's a comic and YouTube personality.
Exactly. And basically what happens is it's the story of how Brian D. Plays online with this crazy chain of events with The Law, and The Law tries to pull this crazy trick shot, and it all streamed live, like on television, all through the world. And Brian D. actually he wins the match. And this turns out to the crazy spawn of events. What happens when you take down the best of the best? Brian D. gets invited to go to Video Game High School, where he meets some friends and gets thrown into this world of competitive gaming. And
once he's at VGHS, it's not only he's trying for a spot on the FPS team, the first-person shooter team, Field of Fire, like you mentioned. There's the rhythm gamers that play a Guitar Hero-esque game.
There's the drift racers playing Overdrift.
Easily my favorite, one of the best supporting characters in the whole show, DK, Drift King.
Yes.
He's over the top, like a very thespian. There's also...
Have ye not the need for speed?
Yeah. Exactly. And there's also the RTS team, the real-time strategy team. We don't really see them until season 2 as much. But one of the characters goes to the school for video game development, actually. Key Swan. She's kind of an odd duck when it comes to the whole thing. Pardon my pun. But she's really kind of an oddball character. And then you got Ted Wong, who's playing Freddy Wong's son in the show. And
really
that's not their relationship in the real life.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole supporting cast for the show is phenomenal because it's actually, for being the project it's fully casted, everything from start to finish. They thought about, okay, we need some actors. The lead plays Brian D. Josh Baylock, which is he's been in films and before. I think he did a cameo appearance as a kid on a bike on No Country for Old Men. We've got Johanna Brady plays the female lead as Jenny Matrix, and she's been in movies like Paranormal Activity 3 and things like that. A lot of smaller roles, but they casted these professional actors to get their really big leads in it, so it's good stuff. But yeah, we're talking the supporting cast. Key Swan, Ted Wong, who is actually in real life Freddy Wong's brother, plays Freddy Wong's son, and it's just a lot of fun little jokes and pointing humor, especially the fan base, because when they got this going, like I said, Freddy Wong, who's a famous YouTuber, got this together as one of the main producers. So, as their target audience are people that are familiar with their material, which they make a lot of, internet jokes, culture jokes, video game culture kind of things, and they all just kind of ties together at the end there at the show. So.
And you talk about supporting cast, and you know we've mentioned Freddy Wong several times, and he has a very small role in the series, but he's he's been producing YouTube videos for years, and he's a face that a lot of people recognize. Dean Calhoun, who's the head of the school, is Harley Morgenstein, and he's, if you've ever seen Epic Mealtime, that's his channel, that's his show, that's what he does. And he plays kind of a no-nonsense dean of the school, you know. When Brian says, you know, sir, you've got to be joking. Do you hear any rafflecopters, son? And that's exactly the kind of cultural internet joke that we're talking about on this show, is that you get things like that. And it makes for a really interesting web series that I think a lot of people look forward to. It's gotten a big fan following as far as that goes. And their approach to it was like a real film approach. It wasn't just some kids in their backyard saying, hey, we're going to make this video and hopefully our friends will watch it and maybe it'll go viral. It was a production team, a real production team, and they had so many people working on this project.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing is, although it may seem like it's just a web series, there's a lot more that goes into it than just a few people with a camera. The whole thing, like I was saying earlier, it started as a Kickstarter program where they thought, okay, we really want to make a project, but you know, just as YouTube partners, we don't have the means and resources to do a production this large. So back when they kicked this thing off, I want to say, was it 2011? I think 2011, or around that range, they launched Kickstarter. And they shot for a goal, and they gave themselves a huge goal. They wanted to raise $75,000 to put in this production, which is huge. And they thought, okay, we'll send this out, we'll make YouTube videos, let our community know we're getting ready to build this. I think by the end of season 1, they had over 5,600 backers. They shot for that goal of $75,000. They reached a goal of over $273,000 raised from the community alone, and they took that money and poured all of that and more into the production. So this isn't just a small scale web series. This is something that they did from pre-production to production to post. All of it has been planned out the whole way. So, I mean, like you're saying.
We're talking in terms of money, and you know, $275,000 sounds like a lot of money, but for video production, for film production, that's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. And so you look at the money that they're spending, and they spent a lot of it on the big statue, the Tetris-like statue that Brian jumps off of during the first season. Spent a lot of money on that. Spent a lot of money on locations. That's how they got some of the really cool locations for Field of Fire. And the rest of it was literally just, hey, crew, thanks for showing up. Money.
Exactly, you know, you pay the crew, you know, for like housing, meals, things like that. Everything that you would work on in a full Hollywood movie, you know, where they have millions of dollars in effort to be able to crunch that down and, you know, do that same project on a smaller scale. You know, it may be a smaller scale, but everything's still there. Making films is not cheap.
Not at all, and it's definitely interesting to look at all the work that went into this, because I think that when a lot of people think of YouTube, you think about the origins of YouTube, and it's people in their backyard, it's people in their living room with a camera, and that's what YouTube videos are. But it's not the case anymore. There's lots of studios that are based fully for production for YouTube videos, for web-based content. And in the first season, their episodes, I think, were anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes long a piece. But the second season, we got 6 half-hour episodes, and that was the whole season. So I'm not really sure what their format is for season 3, but they're looking at, you know, more large-scale production and getting it out on Netflix again, and it's one of those things that the production really amounted to a lot more than they were expecting, I think.
Oh yeah, I want to say in total, although they raised that, you know, $273,000, I think they spent a total of $600,000 into the season 1 alone. Like you're saying, which only had about 10-minute episodes, but you know, to think about how much money and time and effort they've spilled into it, I mean, it's not a small production. And you know, not to mention things you don't even think about, like casting for the soundtracks, getting the lighting equipment in, you know, all the little intricate things, you know. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. Stuff that when you make a YouTube video, you only have to, you know, do so much. You go out in your backyard, you shoot a camera, and for a lot of YouTube makers, it's hard to really break that boundary. So, you know, yeah, if you're going to make a jump, you got to make it big. And
right, and you mentioned soundtrack just there. Yes. Soundtrack in this show is it's really catchy. If you hear it in the background, it's a lot of like 80s sounding rock, and it's actually really interesting.
It's got a retro feel to it.
It's very retro, very appropriate for the video game theme of the show, And I think the first time you hear it is maybe the party scene at Jenny's house in the first season. Might be wrong, but they use it there, and they especially utilize it in in the second season, there's a whole episode where they do a breakdown that's almost like a music video when the music starts playing, and it's they got a custom theme song for the second season by the same artist that they've been using for the soundtrack the whole time, the Plowman. But for that, we have our soundtrack specialist, Joe Bayne. He's here with us today, and we're going to throw it over to him. Joe?
Thank you very much. So the wonderful thing about these small movies and all sorts of stuff is the fact that they also get to bring on smaller artists to the whole deal. The Proto-Men are an example of this. They're sort of a rock opera in band, sort of inspired by a little bit of 80s, a little bit of everything else to sort of culminate into this sort of wonderful video game homaged group. Both of their albums, funnily enough, are about Mega Man, which is a silly little thing in its own, but they actually turned them into these majestic sort of rock opera pieces that are almost, you know, moving in a way. They've introduced these characters and gone on, and this music itself, this sort of powerful music that they've made, transfers beautifully over to the video game high school series. And it's not just them, it's tons of other artists get these chances with these smaller, you know, films and movies. It's sort of independent music and independent film in a way, sort of working together in this beautiful sort of mix of the both. But other than that, that's really all I have to say about the Proto-Men, other than you should check them out with their album Act 2, and they have a new one coming out pretty soon called Act 3 as well.
It's got those video game references and things like that. I mean, like you're saying, Mega Man, Mega Man, come on. How much more retro does it get? So, I mean, yeah, the Proto-Men, go check them out. I listen to their music, so I already knew of their existence.
Of course.
But yeah, when it comes to making small projects like that, he nailed it right on the head, bringing in small artists, you know, that fit the right feel. You know, they wrote the custom soundtrack for season 2. I'm thinking episode 2 when they make their introduction as the song.
Right, and we don't know if they're gonna have the same one for season 3, but they definitely,
it's all up in the air.
They've been in contact with the lead singer and everything, and the series as a whole is just it's a great growth market for people trying to get into the business, people starting out small, and that being said, there's one person that you should look for in particular in season 1 that you might recognize. Zachary Levi has a cameo as Ace, the FPS instructor.
That's right, FPS 101 teacher Ace, not Mr. Ace because that was his father. But
that's just something to look out for in the first season. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back with you on Real Talk.
So, I got this new family, and I don't know what it is about this one, but she can't seem to put down that toy. All day long. Tap, 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 tap. Oh, and she even talks to it. She talks to that more than she talks to him. What's up, bro? Nice shirt. Who's she talking to? Her mom? She talks to her mom a lot.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Real Talk, where we've been discussing web content. I'm your host, Audrey Schroeder, and with me is Stolze. And we have some guests with us here today. We have Jess Plowman, Thank you for joining us. And Joe Bayne, who just did our soundtrack segment for us.
Hey.
And we're going to have a little discussion about web content and where it's going. Aaron and I talked about Video Game High School, which is a very successful web series that was professionally produced. We talked about that a lot in the first segment.
Yeah, and then we talked a little bit how it was all started out from a YouTuber by the name of Freddy Wong, who he started way back in the day making his own web content just on a YouTube channel. He just picked up a camera and went out. So I mean, I figured we'd just start there. Personally, I remember when I first started my YouTube channel. Don't look now, it's still not all that impressive. But I mean, I know what it's like to go out there and just start making videos. I mean, you guys have YouTube channels, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure you've
Not channel myself, but on various channels. Yeah.
close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, have you ever picked up a camera and just thought, hey, I'm gonna go shoot something today?
Yes, but when I was a kid, and none of it made it to YouTube. Thank God. It was all very bad stop animation. But you know, like the fact if I knew of that stuff back in the day, and you see it all the time. Like if I knew I had that potential, instead of like the VC or the recorder that I had was like this big and used VCRs. I would have put it on YouTube, definitely. Like, nobody would have watched it, mind you, but it would have been up there, honestly, if I had, like, known, or that was a thing back then, and dial-up wasn't a thing either, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you said nobody would have watched it. That's how I feel about my videos. Is it'll go, oh, you've got 15 views, and I'm like,
Yeah.
who's looking at my content? But you don't really think
Who
about
are
that.
those 15 people?
Right.
I forget that it's generally myself. That's when it's like, I watched this video 15
That's where I
times.
say all my views come from. It's like, oh, look, you've got
And your
200.
friends, the family members that felt sorry for you.
Your mom shared
Yeah.
it with her coworkers or something.
Open
you know?
tab,
Right,
auto
and that
refresh.
is the vast majority of YouTube is just people who put content out there that never gets seen. But every once in a while, you get the occasional viral video, and what makes a viral video?
Gosh, it's the hardest thing to figure it out. I work at a movie theater. The other day we had this high school student come in with a whole bunch of camera equipment. He'd set it up with the managers. They were going to do this thing where one of the kids was going to ask his girl out to prom by playing a video that he'd made before the movie. They were going to film everybody's reaction and go out and put it on YouTube and try to make a viral video. At first I thought, okay, this is harmless. It's a little weird to be filming in a movie theater, but it's harmless. And they'd gotten all the proper permissions. Well, after they finished, she said yes, and they were like, now we're gonna do a thing where he's going to fake propose to you. I was like, that's just over the top. And I don't know if you'd seen it, but there'd actually been a video that was going around where somebody did the same thing, where proposed to his girl on camera, and then set up a fake, like, we're gonna get married right now thing just to go over the top. But I think it's really interesting that a lot of these people getting into YouTube now, it's funny, you say way back in the day. It's not actually way back in the day, but we are finally getting to that point where there are people who have spent like most of their lives interacting with society in a time when YouTube is really prevalent.
Well,
and so people will just go out to make these viral videos, and that's not really how
And
you
being
do
a
it.
YouTube content creator is a viable career option.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, especially the YouTube partners. Like I was saying, that's the first big step. Is once you get a decent following going, where you're making, constant videos, things like that, and you're building your audiences, you can apply to be a YouTube partner. And from there's different routes to do it, whether you're non-for-profit or you're just kind of doing it on your own. But one of the big things that I know that requires to be a YouTube partner is consistent content. And I think that's a big step into making like what could be considered a viral video or a big
Right.
following, because and there's a huge difference between the two actually. If you think about videos that have millions of views, there's really a couple ways to go about it. You have something that's just like a single gem that goes viral. For example, the big one was this broke all the records, was Psy's video of Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
Psy had a decent following on YouTube before, but he didn't have anything huge, and he made one thing that just kind of stood out, made a lot of pop culture references. It was just so wacky and out there that he made a video that just got billions.
In like a day, it got a million views
Exactly.
or something like
it
that.
blew up.
Yeah.
And that's one way to do it. But the other way, where YouTube partners and really start to jump out your audience, is to make consistent content where you're consistently breaking a million. And part of that is doing exactly that, consistent content. You don't make one video every 7 months, but say, hey, we're going to make a video every 2 or 3 weeks, and you keep your audience wanting more.
I think it's also good to note the sort of transition, as you said, that we're sort of changing times with that sort of thing. of back in the day, and back in the day, I mean like 2 years ago or something, you could use YouTube still, and it's still being done today, mind you, and you know, internet content and stuff like that to get shows on actual TV. You know, I believe, wasn't Adventure Time and Pendleton Ward?
Adventure Time was a series of shorts by Pendleton Ward
Yeah,
on
exactly.
YouTube first.
A lot of these creators and content and artists and all sorts of stuff sort of come up with these ideas, and they're like, well, there's no way we're going to pitch this. You know, so we just decided to put it on the air themselves, and because of that, they get picked up and they get discovered. But I think there's sort of an interesting thing to note now is no longer are they having to worry about get discovered. They can just keep making it on YouTube these days and make the money that way. They don't have to go to a big network. They just got to get the funding from places or even from their fans, which is even more admirable.
Exactly, and you know, thinking about stuff like that, the difference between doing that web-based content and doing things going straight to the TV network is on the internet. You can do whatever you want.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of restrictions.
A lot less of creative vetoes, which is what happens a lot in the production companies and syndicated television. But producing content specifically for web it's a really freeing experience, I think, and it's a direction that I think we're going to continue to head. And there are big companies like looking to get in on this. There's a studio called Maker Studios that they've produced a lot of web series, and I'm off the top of my head couldn't name one for you, but they just got picked up by Disney.
Oh wow!
So Disney looking to get in on the video market, the viral video market.
Right, of course, and I mean that doesn't really surprise me. You think about, the first thing I actually can't help but think of Firefly, because when you're talking about creative decisions that like wouldn't have been vetoed or would have lasted longer if we hadn't had to go through all of these studios, there are all of this content that people adore so much right now that couldn't have existed 10 years ago, not because of a lack of technology, but just because the system for getting content out there was so drastically different.
Yeah, and like they have to go with the whole of like on TV and everything like that, you have to meet certain ratings, you have to do all this sort of stuff that you have to fill in order for the network to be happy with you. And I think like a show like Firefly is a great example. I think if Firefly existed now and was hitting itself now and its network went, we don't want this anymore, they could have just picked up and moved to the internet, honestly.
Yeah, knowing Joss Whedon, it would have.
Shows like, I want to say, Arrested Development started on the air and the network dropped it.
That's exactly the sort of
Netflix
thing.
picked it up. And Netflix is paying for it and continuing to crank out content, and their audience has done nothing but grow because of it.
Right.
And Netflix is a huge market for that kind of thing. They've started creating their own content.
Oh, yeah.
And Hulu has been creating a ridiculous amount of shows to try to compete.
My roommate picked up Hulu Plus, and every advertisement on Hulu Plus is like 17,000 shows they've just come out with. There's an insane amount. Half of them are British comedies for some odd reason. But
that's what's in right now.
Yeah, that's very true.
And Netflix, makes a deal with Marvel. They're producing some Marvel shorts upcoming. They've got House of Cards, which has been ridiculously
amazingly
successful.
good. My
Orange is the
gosh.
New Black, which is getting a second season
That
soon.
one's getting huge reviews online. People are saying, I've yet to watch the show myself, but it's like next in my queue because, I mean, for most people think, oh, I haven't seen any ads on TV for it. What are you watching TV? And that's a good way to start, is that people what TV shows are you watching right now? And a lot of people...
Everything on Netflix.
People are saying, exactly. People are saying,
House
hey,
of Cards.
You need to check out this show I have on Netflix. And, it's something that,
it's convenient, too.
Well, yeah, and what's more is if a series gets backlogged, even one that's on networks, if it gets backlogged and you don't pick it up right away and it's not on Netflix, most people will just never watch it.
Yeah.
Because they want to people are so interested in doing things linearly right now, that if it's not cataloged, where are they going to start? How are they going to start? That's something TV can't provide.
Exactly. I remember when NBC was working on a show called Heroes, if you guys are familiar with that. I loved the show. I loved the idea behind it. But I got so far in, and then one season they moved the time block to a different section on the network because on live television you have blocks of time. You can't air 2 shows at once. And I missed an episode or 2, and then from there I thought, I don't want to watch tonight's episode because I don't want to lose anything. So you lose it.
You fall behind, and that's sort of a problem that I think TV networks have to deal with because we live in a world that's very fast-paced and where our schedules are all over the place. So it's really hard to say I'm always free at 7 o'clock on a whatever day of the week.
Right.
As opposed to I think that the shift towards internet media is really put sort of the power back to us to say I want to. It's given more range of freedom to not only the content producers producers, but the audience as well.
Right.
Like, you just get to say, I want to watch this right now at 3 o'clock at night.
Perfect.
You know, because it's like I'm in, I've got nothing better to do.
It's funny you say 3 o'clock because that's typically when I watch my TV shows.
It's the only time you have time anymore.
Well, and if you're watching on Netflix, you can just kind of binge a bunch of episodes all at once.
Binge watching is huge now. That's one of the reasons that House of Cards is so popular, is because they did a bunch of experimenting, not just with the content itself, and not just with releasing it online, but they put every single episode out at once.
It was the same with the rest of development.
Watch the whole season in 1 or 2 days and be done with it.
Well, that's also one of my problems. It's like they put a new episodes of Top Gear, which is I hate. I don't even like cars, but that show is just genuinely funny. But it's just like they put it out, and all of a sudden I find myself watching 7 hours of a show in one day.
Right, right. Well,
which is probably unhealthy, but
everybody's looking to capitalize on web content, but some of the first people to do so was Joss Whedon.
Absolutely.
To our
He
DVD
really
Firefly, bring it back to the man.
DVD of the week, Dr. Horrible, which was produced during the writers' strike several years ago.
Back in
actually.
2007,
Yeah, it's been a while,
Yeah.
but this was it was a series of videos on YouTube's. I think like 5 or 6 videos total.
Right.
And it was just a short little, I guess, TV opera, we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
Starring Neil Patrick Harris and Felicia Day, Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, don't forget Captain
I mean, you guys have all seen this, right?
Oh yeah,
Right, of course. And the
at
way
least a
that all
dozen
the
times.
actors say that it's one of the most fun things they did says a lot about what we were talking about the creative freedom that web releases bring. Yeah,
it's also like it's a time length thing. Like, how long is Dr. Horrible's? Like
45 minutes.
It's
45
less than an hour.
You couldn't ever like go, to do a movie, which I can consider that a movie, even though as it's put together, it's sort of a serial-based sort of thing. But it is. You couldn't go to any sort of people and be like, I have a 45-minute film here,
Right.
big motion
Right.
pictures.
They blow you right off.
No, you have to Michael Bay it at least an hour and a half, or
2
Peter
hours
Jackson
is
it,
pretty
which
much
is
the
like
standard.
3.5.
The standard anymore is if you're less than an hour 45, it's not going to make it in theaters.
Don't matter how
you're
good
not
the
a
story
movie.
is. They make you put stuff in there.
Right.
I thought
Right.
Joss Whedon did a phenomenal job. Going with the writer's strike, there's not a lot of content getting out there. He said, hey, I've got a cast, got a hold of Neil Patrick Harris.
He's always
Nathan
done a
Fillion.
phenomenal job.
Right.
Highly
Right.
recommended.
So yeah,
But
Dr.
definitely
Horrible,
watch it. Definitely watch it. That's all we've got for DVD of the week, and that's all we've got for you guys right now. Thanks for
So,
joining us,
Joe,
Joe.
Anytime.
It's been great to have you, but you guys know what that makes it time for.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's one last time. It's time for the Movie Minute. Media darling and star of Amazing Spider-Man 2, Emma Stone, was cast in Woody Allen's upcoming untitled film. The star will play alongside Joaquin Phoenix for the eccentric director.
Lionsgate and Saban brands are partnering up to bring the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to the big screen. The studio announced that they plan to launch a franchise with the iconic characters.
The remake of the 1991 surfer classic Point Break has hit another snag. Gerard Butler, who was set to play the role originally filled by Patrick Swayze, has reportedly dropped out of the production for unknown reasons.
In other reboot news, The Mummy has lost yet another director. Andres Muschietti, who joined the production after director Len Wiseman dropped out, has reportedly left the production due to creative differences.
Actor John Krasinski, famous for his role as Jim on The Office, is now taking up the directing reins. The star will direct Anna Kendrick and star alongside her in the upcoming film The Hollers. The cast list for Disney's Star Wars Episode 7 was released last week, but the company is already looking at the bigger picture. CEO Bob Iger announced that there are at least 3 films planned for the franchise, if not more. NBA star LeBron James is getting the silver screen treatment. Yeah! I think that's all the time we had.
Out. Thanks for joining us on this last episode of Real Talk. It's been a great semester.
A phenomenal season. Thank you, everybody, for one final time. My name is Aaron Stolze.
And I'm Audrey Schroeder.
Take it easy, folks.
We'll see you later.